All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. I just wanna touch a onion. She just want a couple hundred. I got mad and changed the subject. Then I got drunk and said fuck it. This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling bitches. Pull up with that Aquafina. Yellow bone, her name is Tina. Tina like the hit casinos. Tina could snort a whole kilo. Tina like to fight and argue. Bye bye Tina, bitch, you argue. Met a dark skin chick named Anna. Anna like that marijuana. Anna was from the Bahamas. At least that's what she said. I assume she's honest. I apologize, Your Honor. I just wanted me some money. You can't tell these niggas frontin'. You can't tell these niggas nothing. 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 All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling bitches. This is for my hustling bitches. Nigga, don't act so suspicious. Hustle hot as hell, but you swear they snitching. You don't wanna go to prison. You don't wanna go to prison. You don't wanna come up missing. You don't wanna come up missing. I just want a couple bitches. Put them in the ring, make a split decision. I'm trying to slow down with the sinning. I pray to God, no, you forgive me. Me and God had a discussion. He said, tell him. I said, you can't tell these niggas nothing. 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 All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling.
What up, everybody? It's your boy, Cardinal Red, and we're back for another one. Alright, y'all. Jamming out to the boy Lewis Keys, rest in peace, man. Let me get this stuff going here, man. Make sure the audio's good. Make sure the visuals are good. And then we can get into a little convo, man. What's good with everybody? I see we got 1 or 2 people in here right now. Appreciate you for tuning in. Let me check the audio. Alright, we good. You can hear me. Alright, y'all. So today I wanted to talk about race and boxing and who is the real pound for pound king in the welterweight division. It's a big debate, rumbling right now around Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Who's the A side, who's the B side, who's the better of the 2 fighters, who's the more skilled. A lot to be said. Want to start out by prefacing the race and boxing portion of it. So recently, I was watching some videos that I'm subscribed to on YouTube. In particular, of course, Captain Full G. He made some videos regarding this same topic. He kind of inspired me. I've always gotten questions in the comment section because I have a big Filipino fan base. I've always gotten people asking me, man, can you talk about race and boxing? Because it is a hotbed topic, especially in the YouTube boxing community. Um, there is there's a misunderstanding, if you ask me, amongst a lot of black YouTubers. Like, I don't understand why they feel like everybody has to just support black fighters. Like there's some type of weird brotherhood of black YouTubers out here that just support black fighters. We only want to support black fighters, and that's totally not my thing. I'm the complete opposite of that. I don't subscribe to that. I don't appreciate that people try to make a sport about race and like this person's no good at the sport because they're this color, or this person's better because of, it really makes no sense. But the conversation needs to be had. Okay, so y'all see, I put your boy. I don't really watch him. Captain Full G watches him a lot, but your homie, BF TB, the best fight, the best TV. Um, I put him in there because he's one of the people who I think a lot of people are pointing the finger at when it comes to the race topic. He said a lot of stuff about Tyson Fury, which was kind of like it was really out of order, man. The stuff he was saying was out of order about Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is not, you know, just because he's not from this country and he's not black doesn't mean he's not a decent fighter. He's good at what he does. He's a big guy, and he uses his size to his advantage. So I don't understand what his whole beef is with Tyson Fury, with him being a gypsy or him being from England or Ireland, wherever he's from. It really doesn't matter. He went into the boxing ring and did what boxers are supposed to do, which is win the fight, and that's all it should be about, man. At the end of the day, but you have these guys who take it, and I know a lot of this stuff is just for views, which is why I really never wanted to touch on it in the past. But it's seeming like because these guys, fighters, are now taking losses, that they're digging deep into the race bag, like it's all about race, and this guy's getting done like this because he's this color, and this guy's getting this special treatment. Because I don't feel that way. I don't feel like there's special treatment in boxing because of race. I think some camps try to make it that way because it benefits them, but I really don't think there's special treatment in the sports of boxing, because boxing is a one-on-one sport. You have to get in the ring and actually win the fight for you to be proven the better of the two fighters. So I don't see how in boxing, race can really control what happens in the ring. Now I know there are other factors like the mafia and stuff like that, which plays a smaller role nowadays. But I don't see how race really plays a role in the boxing ring. It's skill for skill inside the boxing ring. So I put him in there just like I said, simply because he's the one doing most of the talk about race in boxing and being extremely race. It's funny because these guys claim to want to be all for their race and they claim to not be racist, but they're very, very these dudes are like extremely racist. If these were white people, you would be saying that these guys are like members of the KKK or something. The way they carry themselves and the way they speak about other races. Because if you reverse the whole situation about what he said about Tyson Fury and make him a white man talking about black people have been wanting to march against him for what he said. Oh, you want a black man to die in the boxing ring simply because he's black? It makes no sense. So it it's really ridiculous, man. What these guys do for views, and it's really ridiculous that people are actually using their race as some type of battering ram in their little boxing community, and it's the reason I don't deal with these guys. A lot of people ask me about, do you watch this guy? Do you follow this? And I don't follow a lot of these people because I don't know a lot of these people. I don't know how they act on their day to day. I only see what they do on YouTube, and a lot of what they do on YouTube is like it's trash to me. So I would never waste my time even watching these people. But these people are, they're who people are talking about. So, and they are the people that my my subscribers ask me about all the time. So I want to have this conversation. But me personally, I don't have any problem with any other race. I salute every other race who messes with the channel, comes by, likes the content, interacts with the content. I salute you, man. I appreciate it. I don't want to make anything I do ever about race or racism. Just kill that noise, man. I ain't even with that, but it's funny how these guys try to use it and shape a narrative to fit what they want to happen in the boxing ring. Now let's get to Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. Who's the pound for pound king of boxing right now? Who's the pound for pound welterweight king? And it nothing when it comes to Terence Crawford, nothing and Errol Spence, nothing is really based on race because they're both black. You can't really say, well, this guy's better because he's black when the other guy's black. So when it comes to Errol Spence and Terence Bud Crawford, who is the better of the two fighters? I want you guys to comment, please. Leave me a comment. Let me know who y'all think is the better of the two fighters. Personally, me, I feel like if Errol Spence and Terence Crawford was to fight this weekend, Errol Spence, based on what I saw in his last fight, based on what I saw in Terence Crawford's last fight, I still feel like Errol Spence would beat him. I think Errol Spence is just the slightly more talented of the two fighters. I think he can take a better punch. I think he can give a better punch. I think Terence Crawford's footwork is better. I think he has better hand speed. But I think the fact that Spence is a bully style fighter and people question Terence Crawford's chin, I think you'll see Errol Spence try to rough him up in the fight. And we've never really seen Terence Crawford roughed up in a fight. You've only seen Terence Crawford being the bully within the fight, similar to what he did to Kell Brooks, similar to what he did to Sean Porter. He was very bullyish in the Sean Porter fight. He was playing no games in that fight. And I think that's the reason that Sean Porter's father threw in the towel. He saw that Terence Crawford's really on his game, and Sean Porter was banging on the mat and everything, and getting frustrated. He pulled the plug on the fight because he knew Sean Porter was eventually just going to get knocked back down and basically do the same thing over again. He might not have got knocked fully out, but he was going to go down again based off the frustration that he was showing. So he ended the fight. But here's the thing about Terence Crawford to me. I think he's catching these guys at the right moment. And if you watch my videos, whoever's in here, if you watch my videos and you watch a second to last boxing video I did, I said Terence Crawford would knock Sean Porter out in 10 rounds, and Sean Porter would probably retire. A lot of people didn't watch the video, so they probably never saw that. But this is like a week, 2 weeks before the fight. I mean, if you really love boxing and you study the sport, you should have saw that one coming from a mile away. Sean Porter, no matter what he's done in the past, he just hasn't been in a boxing ring. I think for it was well over a year. So I there was no way you were going to get me to say that Sean Porter was going to beat a prime on top of his game, Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford was going to go in there and do exactly what he was supposed to do, and he did exactly what he was supposed to do, and he did it in stylish fashion to the T of what I said. So I think Terence Crawford's on another level than most of the fighters, but I think Errol Spence is his counterpart until they actually fight, and we know who really is the king. You just got to ride with your guy. I know there's a big debate, and everybody wants their guy to be the main guy. You can make your points for either guy. Personally, when I watched both of those guys fight, I just lean a little more toward Errol Spence being the victor if they got it on. Doesn't mean Terence Crawford doesn't have skill. Doesn't mean Terence Crawford won't give him a good fight. But most Terence Crawford fans would even say his chin, when it was tested, he got rocked a couple of times. Nobody can really say that about Errol Spence. That's never really been a situation where you thought Spence, you called into question Spence's chin. So I think until somebody really tests Terence Crawford's chin again, we'll never know unless those two guys get it. I think you're going to see Errol Spence really test his chin. You're going to see the best version of Errol Spence in that fight. I don't think he's going to come in there to play. I don't think it's. I don't. You're going to see the best Errol Spence you've ever seen. And I think the Danny Garcia fight was not a spectacular fight. Errol Spence just coming off a car wreck. You got to give him credit for getting in the ring and doing what he did. He took Danny Garcia apart. He didn't knock him down or out, but he did take him apart, and he made him look extremely amateurish. So, everybody he's faced, he's made him look like amateurs. So, but then I think a lot of people feel like Terence Crawford is better because they're going off the fact he's knocked down his last few opponents. He knocked down Kell Brook. He knocked down Sharon Porter. Who was his fight before that? Before I can't remember who he fought before Kell Brook, but I think he knocked them down out too. So I think people are going off the fact Spence hasn't had a knockout in a long time. Spence is fighting a different type of fight, and I'm not trying to knock Terence Crawford in any way. Spence is fighting a different type of fight. He fights at his own pace. He fights at his own style, and he sticks to his style. Is what I like about him. He doesn't come out of his style, and his style wins fights. You can say the same thing for Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford has a style of fighting, sticks to his style, really doesn't come out of his style. I think people feel like Terence Crawford can adapt better than what Errol Spence can do. And I would say this for Terence Crawford. I think Terence Crawford can turn the speed up, and Errol Spence can't turn the speed up. Is the reason why I had Manny Pacquiao beating Errol Spence is because I think the best version of Pacquiao can alter speeds during a fight and can turn it up when he needs to and turn it down when he needs to. Unfortunately, we didn't get that version of Pacquiao in the you guys fight, but we don't know what version of Pacquiao would have showed up for Errol Spence fight. But I do think if Crawford and Spence were to get it on, you would see levels in speed in Spence to where you wouldn't see levels in speed levels in speed in Crawford where you wouldn't see levels in speed in Spence. You would see Spence fight one pace the whole fight, and he would be very bullish with whatever pace he decides to use. And I think he would try to use this as an advantage in the fight. Terence Crawford, I think, will come in with one style, and if the style isn't working, he would either level his speed up or he would level his speed down. I do give Terence Crawford the speed edge, and I give a lot of fighters the speed edge versus Errol Spence because he doesn't possess speed as an asset as a fighter. Where he does possess, his stance is very good. His punching power is very good. The way he uses the ring is excellent. His defense is good, and he has bully size. So those are the assets that he uses. Terence Crawford uses speed. He uses footwork. He uses hand speed. He uses ring knowledge. It's going to be a ring general style fight when these guys do get it on. I just feel like Errol Spence. I think that bully style is going to work better in Errol Spence's favor than Terence Crawford's levels and speed style. It's my personal opinion. Let me see what y'all saying. I got a comment. I appreciate that. Dalton Voss says styles make fight. I agree. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, just look at the you guys Pacquiao fight. Nobody had you guys beating Pacquiao. Whether Pacquiao was injured because of his cramps or whether Pacquiao is just old. Nobody in their right mind would have said, based off that Thurman fight, you guys has a chance of beating them because we all, not I won't say we all, because I did study you guys because I felt like you guys was the perfect fight for Pacquiao 6 months before it actually happened. If they would have signed it when they were supposed to have signed it, but I think Ugas' style was something that was surprising for Pacquiao, and I don't think Pacquiao was prepared for what Ugas actually brought to the table, and I don't think he knew that he had that weapon of the looping punch, and I don't think he realized that he was that big and strong, and that can take a toll because Terence Crawford hasn't fought the level of fighter. And I hate to keep comparing these guys to the last generation of fighters, but you have to compare the new to the old or the old to the new. Let's just be honest. Neither one of those guys compare to the old generation of fighters. Their resume is just not there, and it's at this point it's really not their fault because at welterweight there's not a lot of competition. It's just not a lot of competition anymore. There was a lot of competition, but you had Pacquiao come in and destroy a couple of guys' careers, and Broner and Thurman, and you've had your Danny Garcias and your Sean Porters, and your who else can I name, and your Mikey Garcias. They're not making the wave at welterweight that people thought they might have. No, but there are no big names left at welterweight. You got Crawford, you got Spence. I know people mentioned Benavidez. I mean, who y'all talking about last night? Man, I forgot the names. Y'all gotta remind me who y'all was talking about last night. But y'all mentioned two names last night. The problem with those two names is they don't sell on pay-per-view. So let's say Spence and Crawford get it on, one of those two guys win. Who do they go fight next at welterweight? It's going to be a situation that the winner is probably going to move up in weight, and then the loser is going to be stuck at welterweight fighting the up and coming welterweights. I mean, I kind of see that as they might have a rematch, but after that, then what? Who are the next guys at welterweight who you pair Spence or Crawford up against? That should be the real question. I don't really see the next generation of welterweights personally yet. That's going to be great. Let me see what y'all saying. Crawford beats Spence. It. Terence has that it factor. And that's from Roman Espanol. What's the it factor that Crawford has? I know a lot of people. I feel like a lot more people like Crawford than like Spence. I'm not for or against either guy. I'm going based off skill and what I've assessed from watching them fight. Solely, I'm not for or against either guy. Terence Crawford might go in there and beat Spence with his level, style, of speed. But personally, I think Spence wins that fight. So enlighten me, Roman. What is the it factor that that Crawford possesses? Pac says, "Sup, Red? Long time no see." Definitely, man. My fault, man. I've been working, man. Just trying to get everything situated so I can get back to doing my thing. Personally, I feel like a lot of people are not watching anymore, so I got to rebuild. It's going to take a little while to rebuild back to where I was at, and then a lot of people are not watching because Pacquiao is not a factor anymore, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't seem to not support him in his political aspirations. So I was going to make some political videos for Pacquiao, try to hype him up, his president, but I'm going to bow out of that game because I don't want people to feel a certain type of way, man. So I'm gonna leave the politics alone, man. So appreciate you, Pac, man, for coming through though. But so who are the next fighters these two guys would be paired up against? I think that's the real question. So one of them's they're eventually gonna fight each other, and one of them's gonna be the victor. And like I said, I think whoever wins is going to end up moving up in weight. I think, especially if Errol Spence wins, because he's naturally a bigger body, and I think he can easily move up in weight and have success. to where Terence Crawford, he might be able to move up to maybe 154, 155, and campaign up there. But I think Errol Spence could probably go up to 160, maybe even 170, and challenge Canelo for some of those belts at 160 and 170s. So let me know what y'all think about that. But I just feel like if you really break it down, if you and you base it solely off the last two fights, I really wish Errol Spence and Pacquiao would have got along, because I think that would have been the ultimate gauge of how Errol Spence deals with speed. And although we didn't get the speed from Pacquiao in the you guys fight, I think we would have got a different version of Pacquiao if he did fight Spence. I don't think that version of Pacquiao that showed up for who guys is what you were going to get if he actually fought Spence. I think Pacquiao, his motivation came way down when Spence backed out of that fight, and you just got a version of Pacquiao that was extremely unprepared and really shouldn't have been fighting that guy at that moment. But I do feel like if they would have fought, that would have been the perfect gauge of, okay, how does Errol Spence deal with the best speed that welterweight boxing had out there at the moment? Nobody's speed and nobody's footwork and hand speed compares to Manny Pacquiao. The next best thing you have is Terence Crawford, and that would have been the ultimate gauge. Okay, so you stick him in the ring with the best speed out there. How does Spence react to that? And I wish we could have got that fight, because that would have told you a lot about how he was going to react to Terence Crawford. Because Terence Crawford is good, he has footwork, he has speed, but it's not Manny Pacquiao footwork or speed when Manny Pacquiao is on his game. But he does possess very good skill sets with footwork and speed. So, what you say, Pat? He said not sure about Spence because that eye is suspect. LOL. And I spoke about that yesterday. I agree with you there, man. I don't know. We don't know what version of Spence is coming back. But like I said yesterday, the eye could have been injured worse than what we thought. But he fought with an injured eye against Danny Garcia. Obviously, he felt like the injury was enough to keep him from fighting Manny Pacquiao, who was a much more dangerous fighter than Danny Garcia. Now he obviously fixed the problem, so you might be getting a better version of Spence than that fought Danny Garcia. You feel what I'm saying? He might actually be a better version of himself after that eye was repaired. If it could really still be that he just backed out of the fight because he didn't want to fight Manny Pacquiao at the end of the day. It could still be that. I know a lot of people feel like Spence is more of the duck than Terence Crawford is. That Terence Crawford will fight anybody, and Spence kind of plays his role just because he has two belts. And like I said, the eye injury might still just be a fictional injury to get out of a fight. But if it was real, if he got something repaired, you should get a better version of Errol Spence than you got before the Danny Garcia fight, because that eye wasn't repaired for the Danny Garcia fight. Just my just my opinion. Pac says he's the new Thurman. Eye injury prone. And I spoke about Thurman too yesterday, man, about the fact that Thurman, Errol Spence is going to need a tune-up fight. Well, here's another thing. If Errol Spence comes straight back, because I know he's behind the scenes politicking with his team right now, trying to put together the best path for him to make his comeback. Okay, so let's say Errol Spence comes back, says, "F it, I want Crawford. I don't want no tune-ups. I want Crawford. Let's get it on 55-45. Let's make it happen." What then? Would y'all still consider Earl? Would y'all think differently of Errol Spence if he did that? Or if he comes back and takes a tune-up, would you say, well, Errol Spence just ain't the same fighter. But if he comes back and says, "Hey, F a tune up, I want Crawford. I want to fight him next. Let's make it happen. Take 55-45 or 60-40, and let's make the fight." Then what? Then would you still be questioning Spence's abilities to beat Crawford? Because I feel like this: if he comes back and he does take that Crawford fight uh, first, I would be even more confident that he's going to beat Terence Crawford than I am right now. I already think he'll beat Crawford, but I would be even more confident that he would beat Crawford because he knows something that we all don't know about that eye, and obviously the eye was more of a factor than what he made it seem like in the Danny fight. Danny's not that. No shade to Danny Garcia or nothing, but Danny Garcia is not Manny Pacquiao. He's not Terence Crawford. He's not on the level of Errol Spence Jr. He's not on Sean Porter's level. He's definitely not on Keith Thurman's level, and we haven't seen Thurman in almost 2 or 3 years. So I just feel like this, man. You're not going to see the same Errol Spence that fought Danny Garcia. And I think you might even see Spence pull something else out of his bag of tricks. I think you're going to see a Spence who tries to incorporate speed if he does take on Terence Crawford next. Because that's the thing he lacks, and I think that's the thing that would have actually gotten him knocked out. Yes, I said I think Manny Pacquiao would have knocked him out. I think Pacquiao would have knocked him out. I'm gonna say it again. I think Pacquiao would have knocked him out. I think Pacquiao's speed would have overwhelmed him in the later rounds. If we got that fight when we were supposed to have gotten it, and we got both versions of those fighters that were supposed to have shown up, I think Pacquiao knocks Terence Crawford out. And I mean Errol Spence out. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, if Pacquiao could have knocked him out, Terence Crawford, he got enough speed to not. It's not the same fighter. Pacquiao has different skills than Terence Crawford has. Pacquiao's a quicker fighter than Terence Crawford is. Pacquiao has quicker feet and a better punching power than Terence Crawford has. If you ask me. Let me see what y'all saying. Ain't live. Well, ain't live, man. It's been a minute, boy. Your boy Spence better take the tune up without bro. Your boy better take that tune up. Listen, like I said, I'm not for either or guy, so don't say he's my boy because I think he beats Terence Crawford. I only say that based off of what I've assessed from watching both fighters fight. And I think there are a few things that Spence does that he can expose a few things that Terence Crawford does badly. Well, and I don't even want to put those things out there. I want to see him fight before I even try to acknowledge what I think Terence Crawford does. Because I don't want nobody to feel no type of way like I'm trying to take. I only want to base this off of what both guys do well. I don't even want to really talk about what both guys do bad. I already spoke about Spence's speed problem, but everybody knows he has a speed problem. But Spence has flaws as well. Crawford could very well take advantage of those flaws. They haven't fought yet. This is solely based off of what I feel off of watching them both fight. And I just feel like because Spence does have that one style that he always uses, it's a very paced fight. He don't gas himself, and I think that's one of the things that Terence Crawford would try to use if they did fight. He would attempt to try to use speed to gas Errol Spence out, and I think that's one of the reasons that Crawford would lose because Crawford would be going 100 miles an hour for the first 5 or 6 rounds, and Spence is going to just stay in that one style. He's not, unless Crawford can really just pummel him with punches like Pacquiao used to do. I don't think that's the style of using speed to beat him would work for Terence Crawford. I think it would work for Pacquiao because he has a pop behind his punches to where Terence Crawford don't have that same pop behind his punches, if you ask me. And I think he would try to use his speed the first 5 or 6 rounds and to gas out Errol Spence. And I think he would end up gassing himself out. And then Spence would take advantage of him. He would take advantage of him at that point. And if you watch both of them fight, the reason I say this is because Spence fights at his own pace. Terence Crawford tries to make you fight at his pace. Spence, when have y'all ever seen Spence come out of his own pace? I think Pacquiao would have been able to take him out of his pace because Pacquiao does weird things with his angles and his speed. So he would have to, it would be a situation of Spence following Pacquiao around the ring, trying to use his boxing stance and the way he moves around the ring to his advantage. And I don't think Terence Crawford does that. Crawford has speed, but Crawford doesn't use the weird angles with his speed. So it would be a totally different fight when it comes to Crawford versus Spence than Pacquiao versus Spence. And I really feel like because Crawford would try to speed the fight up, he would end up gassing himself out. And since Errol Spence does not use speed in any type of way, he fights at his own pace, he would just gas himself out and Spence would take advantage of him at the end of the fight. Boom, point blank, period. And I think it would be so shocking to people to watch it happen, and they wouldn't understand it because they don't understand. I don't think a lot of people really fully understand boxing and how it works. Let me see what y'all saying. Let me see what y'all saying. I think even the Pac-Man version from you guys can win against Spence during that fight night. I saw Pac-Man keep going forward, and I don't know if Spence has the mentality to keep going forward with Pac-Man fast hands, and that's a good point. You know, it was hard for Ugas. Listen, Ugas was getting beat up in that fight. The only thing that kept the only reason Ugas won that fight is because Pacquiao had to stay in front of him because he couldn't use his legs. If Pacquiao would have moved for only 2 rounds, he would have won that fight. If he would have gave you the speed angles just for 2 rounds and then fought the exact same way he did, he would have won the fight. So I completely agree with you there. The only thing I disagree with is I don't think you can compare what you just said to Spence and Crawford because Crawford doesn't have the speed and angles that Pacquiao has. Crawford has speed and his own style. He has like a pace style where he tries to he'll slow you down if he needs to, he'll speed you up if he needs to. But he doesn't have them weird angles to throw out there. And I think because I think his game plan would be to gas him out, to gas Spence out. And I feel like that's the wrong game. But I could be wrong. His game plan might be, hey, let me just fight the same pace that Spence fights. That would completely it would be a wrinkle in there, but if he decided to just fight the pace that Spence fights, then it would be a real muddy bang 'em up fight. And who wins a muddy bang 'em up fight between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford? I'm gonna go with the guy who's used to being a bully fighter, Errol Spence, who's the naturally bigger guy. That's just my opinion. I want to know what y'all think about that. If there's only 2 ways Crawford can go about this. He can either go really quick and try to gas Errol Spence out, or he can go the same pace as Errol Spence and try to fight a pace-for-pace fight with Errol Spence. And I think that's the wrong fight. So unless he can come up with a in-between game plan or a new wrinkle, I haven't seen anything else really from Terence Crawford. I've seen him speed guys up and I've seen him slow guys down, but I've never seen weird angles from Terence Crawford. I've never seen spectacular punching power from Terence Crawford. He's not KOing most of these guys. He's just knocking them down, and then they're throwing in the towel because those guys, if you ask me, a lot of these guys have been past their prime. Sean Porter retired. If you watch my video, I told y'all Sean Porter was going to retire, even though nobody watched it. Even though nobody watched it, I told y'all Sean Porter was going to retire. I saw that coming from a mile away. Sean Porter's been inactive he wasn't amazing when he was fighting. It was time for Sean Porter to go. He got him a nice paycheck, and he got, hey, it is what it is, and he retired. So I'm not saying this because I'm biased or I'm against anybody. I just I assess fight boxing from a skill to skill stand. What skill does this guy have? What skill does this guy have? Can this guy do something different? Has he shown me that he's willing to do something different? Or can this guy do something different? Has he shown me these? To be honest, neither one of these two fighters have shown me that they can do anything different. So I'm only going with the fighter who I feel like has done what he has done all the time to the highest level, and that's Errol Spence. Because I think Errol Spence has fought the better of the two competition. When you compare the resumes, Errol Spence's resume is better than Terence Crawford's resume. Especially at welterweight, he just has a better resume, and I think the wins that he got at welterweight were better wins than Terence Crawford's wins. It is what it is, man. I know a lot of people like Crawford and they want to hear me say Crawford wins that fight. I just don't. I don't see it yet. Now, like I said, there might be a new wrinkle that Terence Crawford hasn't shown us yet. He just hasn't shown it to me yet. He might pull that wrinkle out specifically for the Spence fight, but we have to see the fight for it to happen. And it's going to be interesting. Let me jump into our comment before I move on. Hold on. Pac says he lost his footwork, but his hand speed alone will overwhelm Earl Spence. Ugas waited and let Pac-Man come in. I mean, I don't question his hand speed. I don't question his footwork. I'm a realist when it comes to boxing and fighting. That there are injuries, and when it comes to injuries in sports, there are injuries in sports. And in boxing, unfortunately, a lot of times you have to fight with injuries, which is why I came down so hard on Errol Spence when he backed out of the fight for the eye injury. Is because an eye injury that he was using to say, hey, I can't fight, he could have fought with that injury very easily. Fighters fight with worse injuries all the time. Broken ribs, fractured wrists, messed up ankles, messed up knees. People fight with bad vision all the time. And so that's why I felt like it was an excuse. This stuff happens all the time. Even Floyd Mayweather. I mean, his hands are pretty much mangled. This is why he uses allegedly steroids. There's I forgot the name of it, but it's like a legal steroid that he was putting on, cream that he was putting on his hand to numb it and make him not feel it when he fights. So I have to look it up to find out what the name of it was, to remember what the name of it was. But and this is allegedly, but he really was doing it. Allegedly. So injuries happen all the time. So I would say one thing. I feel like if Pacquiao said he had leg cramps, I'm a realist. He had leg cramps. Okay. If Ugas said his bicep was torn during the fight, he fought injured. His bicep was torn. I don't want to drag these guys through the mud when I know that as a former athlete, a person who played a lot of basketball, a little football, soccer. I mean, you get hurt all the time, and I can imagine what boxers go through during training, the type of sideline injuries that occur, like hurting the eye or hurting the knee, bumping heads with somebody, getting cut. All this stuff is going to happen. So I would never say that a fighter is lying about an injury. I say that to say this: if Pacquiao was hurt, this is the reason I want him to come back. If he was injured, it just leaves so many question marks out there, because he did still put up a great performance with Ugas, not even using his legs. So I still want to see what he has left in the tank. And I came down so hard on Errol Spence because of the type of injury. I'm not a Spence hater in any type of way. I'm not a Crawford hater. I don't hate these guys. These are black men trying to be successful within sports. So I don't do nothing but applaud them for what they do. I don't have to. I don't have to put them on a high pedestal like I did Pacquiao because I'm not that big of a fan of them. You know, I just don't feel like these guys compare to the last generation of fighters. So, when me as a fan who got to watch the last generation of fighters, I'm raising the bar really high for these next generation of fighters, and I don't think any of them have tipped my scale of greatness yet. That's just me. You know, you don't have to feel the same way. If you love Terence Crawford, you know, go 100% for your fighter because that's who you love. If you love Errol Spence, go 100% for your fighter. That's who you love. You know, it don't have to be based off race. It don't have to be based off hate. It don't have to be based off of this guy's chains bigger than that. I don't care about none of that. I like boxing skills. I like to watch amazing fighters, people who can do something I'd never be able to do in life. So you know, I'm not basing nothing that I say off of hate, disrespect. My thing is off skill. What could you do? How can you get better? You know, and like I said, I don't hate Spence, but I feel like he ducked with the eye injury. I do feel like he ducked with the eye injury. I didn't see what y'all saying. Uh, Man, I can't even say your name. Camilo Diago. I know I'm saying it wrong. He says Crawford and Spence is no match to Pacquiao. Real talk, both are uh, Crawford and I think you okay cowards and duckers. They scared to fight Pac-Man. Listen, you know, I made a lot of videos about how I felt, and I just spoke a little bit about how I felt about, you know, those two guys not fighting Manny Pacquiao. And you know, my bar is so high because getting to watch Pacquiao and getting to watch his fights live and getting to watch him when he was in his prime, my bar is super high when it comes to fighting, man. When it comes to boxing and what I want to see accomplished in the boxing ring. I got to watch Pacquiao. I got to watch Mayweather. I got to watch De La Hoya. I got to watch Margarito. I got to watch Miguel Cotto. I got to watch the list goes on and on. Ricky Hatton. I got to watch Juan Manuel Marquez. I got to watch uh, all these great boxers, these guys who really put it on the line. And now you got these new generation of fighters that are so afraid of losing that they won't fight the best guy out there or who's perceived to be the best guy out there. Now, let's keep it real for a second. This is no shade to Terence Crawford. But Terence Crawford, everybody says, well, Spence is keeping these two guys from fighting. He's not giving a fair split of the purse. Well, look at it like this. Errol Spence earned 2 belts. It puts him a notch above Terence Crawford. He can demand whatever he wants until Terence Crawford levels up. There was a fight out there, Ugas, that Terence Crawford could have taken. He didn't have to take Sean Porter. There's a reason he took Sean Porter over Ugas. And then people gonna say, well, the WBA, they're making Ugas a mandatory and all this stuff. No, hold on. Ugas, he could go fight Ugas. I'm pretty sure the WBA would love for Ugas to fight Terence Crawford. I'm pretty sure there would be no way in hell that if Crawford said, "Hey, I want to fight Ugas over Porter," that they would try to block that fight. So, and they would think they're gonna make more money off of Eugenio Ugas fighting Jamal James than they would make off of Ugas fighting Terence Crawford. That don't even make sense, and that's an excuse people are making, uh, so they don't have to put Terence to really say what's going on with Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is fighting the fighters Bob Arum can get for him. That's the whole problem. He's not getting real good competition because he was stuck on top rank. Now he has the time. He can go do what he wants. He's getting away from Bob Arum. He can either go over to PBC and accept whatever terms Errol Spence gives him, or he can go do what he's been doing over at top rank and fight B level competition. Let's just keep it real. He's been fighting B level competition, beating everybody, beating all of them, but fighting B level competition. Errol Spence has been fighting B level competition as well, but Errol Spence has 2 or 3 belts, so he has more bargaining chips than Terence Crawford. It's just common sense. It's common math. I don't understand even what the argument is of why people think Terence Crawford somehow deserves an equal split of the money. It don't even make sense. It don't even make sense. I mean, the only way he can get an equal share of the money is if you're bringing something equal to the table, and he's not bringing something equal to the table, so there shouldn't be an equal split. That should be the end of the conversation right there. And when it comes to money splits, there is no equal money split. And in boxing, this is how things work. That's like let's say the 6-time Bulls uh were gonna go play who only won one championship. Let's say the Charlotte Hornets won one championship, and then you got the Lakers out there. They won 7 championships, and they're gonna put on a greatest champions versus greatest champions basketball event. How can the one championship Charlotte Hornets say, "Hey man, we want to play the 6-time champion Bulls over the 6 or 7-time champion Lakers because we won a championship"? It don't make sense because they got way more championships than you would ever have. I could ever even think about. I mean, it's levels to everything. So if you wanted it to be equal, you would have to put the Bulls against the 6 or 7-time Lakers. You couldn't put the Bulls against the one-time Charlotte. It don't. It's not a competition. You're trying to make it seem like Errol Spence and Terence Crawford are on the same level, and they're not. Errol Spence earned the level that he's at. It's up to Terence Crawford to either level up or come down on your price. It's just the way it is, man. And I don't understand people's argument when it comes to this purse split. There should be no argument. Let me see what y'all saying there. Pacquiao lost to Ugas because he got cramp in his legs. That's why Pacquiao lost his his head movement and footwork. And I agree. I think Pacquiao there was something going on with him. It definitely wasn't the version of Pacquiao that fought Terence Crawford. I mean, not Terence that fought Keith Thurman, and it definitely wasn't the version of Pacquiao that beat Broner. Obviously, something was wrong, but he lost. As much as I hate to say it, but I just have to admit what it is. Manny Pacquiao lost. I'm hoping. I wake up every day and I say, I say, please let this man come back for one. Please don't let me be stuck with Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. for the rest of my boxing life. Please give me one more Manny Pacquiao. I'm hoping it happens, man. I'm hoping it happens. Maybe one day I'll wake up and Pacquiao says, you know what? These guys finally worked it out. This is what I'm hoping that happens. I'm hoping that there's 2 scenarios in my mind that would be just the ultimate end all be all to this. I'm hoping either Spence comes back and says, okay, I promised Manny Pacquiao that I would fight him. If he's willing to fight me, if he's willing to come out of retirement, I'll still fight him. Because I want to prove I am the greatest, and I want to do it against the greatest of the last generation. Now, that could be one scenario of how it plays out for Pacquiao. Or I'm hoping Pacquiao wins the election and decides I want to do I want to put on a fight for the Philippines as the president. And I'm hoping he does it against real competition. But if he does it if he does it for charity, I wouldn't be mad either. Oh, or maybe we'll get the Spence Crawford fight. Maybe Spence is gonna say, "Hey man, I don't want no tune up. I don't need a tune up. My eyes fixed. I didn't get the Pacquiao fight. Bring your here, boy. Come on, Crawford. Bring your ass here, boy. Let's get it on. Let's rumble." And it would be great for boxing fans. You know what I'm saying? I want what's best for the boxing fans. I'm sick of these fights that really don't mean anything. A lot of these fights they don't mean anything because it's not the best. Shouts out to you. I see caps in her. Shouts out to your homie, but it's not the best fighting the best. What we got over the past 5, 6, 7 years of boxing has not been the best fighters fighting the best fighters. It's been a great fighter fighting good fighters for big money is what you've been getting. And me as a fan, I've been totally disappointed. And I was so happy to still have Pacquiao around because I know Pacquiao doesn't operate like that. He doesn't, and you got proof of that Pacquiao's a different breed in the Ugas fight because he didn't have to take that fight. Pacquiao could have very easily said, "Hey man, this is a setup. I see it coming a mile away. I don't know what this guy brings to the table. I need to prepare. Give me a couple months." He could have easily cowered it out of that fight and said, "No, no, no. Y'all told me Errol Spence." And then I get over and it's Yordanius who guys? Yordanius who guys? And so he could have easily, but Pacquiao's a different breed. He'll take a fight even if he shouldn't take a fight. Even if fans is telling him don't take that fight. It's a setup. He's like, I'm a warrior. We'll settle it in the ring. Whoever wins, wins, and may the best man win. That's how he plays the game. But these new guys don't play the game like that. It's like Mayweather said. It's checker. I mean, it's chess. It's not checkers. They're playing chess with boxing, with the game of boxing, the sport of boxing. They're out here playing chess, and I don't blame them. I'm not mad. They're making money. You have to make chess moves to make money. But as a fan, I'm disappointed because those chess moves are not. It seems like it's always a king versus a pawn. It's always a king versus a rook, or a queen versus a pawn. It's never a king versus a king or a queen versus a queen. It's always a great versus he's all right. If you get what I'm trying to say, man, and that's why I don't. That's why I don't put these guys at that level yet. My bar is up here. These guys are they're getting there, but they're not tipping my bar yet. I don't. The fact that a lot of people are getting so out of they get out of character over Crawford and Spence. I'm like, why? These guys they haven't even proved anything. I mean, their resumes, you got guys like Margarito and Cotto and Pacquiao and De La Hoya. These guys got 50 and 60 and 70 fights, 80 fights on their resume. How many fights does Terence Crawford and Bud? They don't even got that between them. They might have 60 fights between them. So the fact that people are even putting these guys up on these super duper high pedestals and getting all twisted out of shape because this guy don't like this guy, this YouTuber don't like this guy, it shows it shows the state of boxing, man. It shows the state of boxing fans. It shows how ridiculous this has become. To be honest with you, and it shows that people they're not going off of talent. They're not going off of skill. They're assessing how much they like somebody. And I could care less how much I like Terence Crawford as a person or how much I like Errol Spence as a person. How much skill do you have? How much boxing skill do you have? That's what it's supposed to be about at the end of the day, people. How much boxing skill do you have? And the conversation has gotten so far away from boxing skills, it's almost ridiculous at this point, man. All right, let me see what y'all said in the chat. I'm gonna get back to your question. Ain't Live says, "True talk. Spence ain't never even talked about money and numbers with no other fighters. But when Crawford moved up to 147, throughout numbers, and that's a super fact." I mean, how can I put this? Okay. I think y'all would understand this. Listen, Crawford and Spence is a super fight. Okay, I don't blame Earl Spence for trying to take financial advantage of a super fight. All these other fights that they're fighting are not super fights. Earl Spence versus Danny Garcia is not a super fight. Earl Spence versus Keith Thurman is a great fight. It's not a super fight. Earl Spence versus Terence Crawford is a super fight. Errol Spence versus Manny Pacquiao is a super fight. Crawford versus Pacquiao is a super fight. And I don't blame him for trying to take advantage of the numbers of a super fight. That listen, that's the business aspect of it. We want the best fighting the best, but at that level, their numbers, they're astronomical numbers. Somebody's gonna get the bigger piece of them numbers. Somebody's gonna get the smaller piece of them numbers. And the only way you can decipher who's gonna get the bigger and the smaller cut in boxing is who has more belts. Are you a champion? Are you not a champion? Are you a unified champion? Are you not a unified champion? It doesn't mean that Crawford is not more talented than Earl Spence Jr. He might very well be more talented and might beat the ish out of Spence. But in the negotiation table, that really don't matter. What matters is who's the A side, who's the B side, who's getting the bigger slice of the pie, who's getting the smaller slice of the pie. And by numbers, by just the numbers, it's Earl Spence Jr. He has more belts. He brings the pay-per-view crowd. He's the A side. There is no argument. That doesn't mean Spence is going to win the fight. That just means he's the A side of the fight. He deserves the bigger purse. He should get the bigger purse. Terence Crawford has to realize I'm just not the A side. I have more to gain for taking the fight at a smaller purse and winning than I do never taking the fight at all. The other alternative in all this is we never get a Spence Crawford fight. Unless somehow Earl Spence loses those belts. And then he would be clamoring for a Terence Crawford fight. But in a scenario of right now, today, that's not a 50-50 split. It's not, because then you would be taking something away from Earl Spence. And at that point, why would you even pay for that fight? If Earl Spence is not worth more money because he's a unified champion, then that degrades Earl Spence as a fighter. And then that takes something away from the fight. I'm just saying. Let me see what y'all saying. Caps, what's good, bro? That's right. Pack, different breed. Totally different breed, man. It's a totally different. There's not even a competition when you talk about the last generation versus this generation. But if you only went off boxing records, that's not even a competition. These guys haven't even faced nowhere near the level of champions that the last generation was facing. I can name at least 10 welterweights that would demolish both Earl Spence and Terence Crawford. Demolish them. There wouldn't even be, especially those guys in their prime. They would beat the out of Spence and Crawford, hands down. And I would even put one guy in there that I don't even like, and I would have him on the top of the list, which would be Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather would mop the floor with both of those guys. He's a different level. I don't even like. I despise Floyd Mayweather. I cannot stand Floyd Mayweather. I like what he did business wise for boxing and bringing money to the sport, but I can't stand Floyd Mayweather at all. But to be honest, he would beat the crap out of Spence and Crawford. He would. I just gotta be honest about it. He would definitely beat the shit out of him. He would definitely beat the crap out of both of them. Let me see what y'all say. Ain't Live says, hey, it's a 50-50 fight, and whoever wins, they get the most in the rematch. It don't work like that, man, because there might not be a rematch. That's the problem. You're saying, what if one of those guys get hurt to the point they can't rematch during the fight? That's definitely not going to be a rematch. It's not. You got to be fair. You got to be fair, man. You got to be fair when it comes to talking about purse splits. You got to be fair. When Floyd Mayweather fought Manny Pacquiao, Mayweather got the bigger piece of the pie, even though Pacquiao was a bigger star at the time. More people liked Manny Pacquiao than liked Floyd Mayweather at the time. But Floyd Mayweather brings the pay-per-view numbers in. So, he got the bigger piece of the pie. So, I'm just being honest, man. I'm being honest as I possibly can. That's not a fair split. It's not 50-50 is not a fair split for Spence. And I agree with them 100%. If they're demanding 50-50, don't take the fight. You're already the unified champion. You got nothing to lose. It's Terence Crawford who wants the fame, who wants the accolades, who wants the recognition as the best guy out there. And if you're gonna give up something as far as, hey, this guy might beat you, you better get every dollar out of it that you can, because once he beats you, that's it. A lot of people are gonna turn on you. Most people are gonna turn on you. Most of your so-called fans, they ain't gonna be around once you lose. All these people claiming his race and all this, and his brotherhood, his brotherhood. They gonna turn their back on you, become Terence Crawford fans as soon as you lose. So Spence would be stupid to take a. He would be completely stupid to take a 50-50 split when that 50 when the margin from 50-50 to 60-40 might be 5, 6, 10 million dollars. He would be ignorant to leave that on the table and say, "Oh, well, I'll just split that with Terence Crawford, and if he beats me, he just beats me. Maybe he gives me a rematch." You would be stupid when you got all the negotiating power. And I would hate to put it that bluntly, but he has all the negotiating power. Whether Terence Crawford is the better fighter or not, that has nothing to do with negotiating a boxing fight to where you have two superstars. It's all based off, like I said, who's bringing in the numbers, who's the champion, who's the unified champion. Unfortunately for Terence Crawford, he's not bringing in huge pay-per-view numbers. Puts him down a notch. He's not the unified champion. Puts him down another notch. Errol Spence brings in pretty good numbers. Boom, he's the unified champion. Boom, he's the A side. It should be that simple. It really should be that simple. Don't mean Crawford can't beat him. It just means he's not the A side. You don't deserve the bigger piece of the pie for the first fight. The second fight, I mean, it would be a crazy negotiation. And I actually think if Spence lost, well, you become the B side. You're not even a champion anymore. So, I mean, you're just fighting because you think you can beat him at that point. And Terence Crawford can demand whatever he wants. Just look at it that way. Okay, let's say I'm gonna give you your hypothetical of the 50-50 real fast. Let's say Spence and Crawford fight this weekend. It's 50-50 split. Crawford beats Spence. Spence wants his rematch. Crawford would be ignorant. He would be completely stupid to say, you know what? You gave me 50-50. I'm going to give you, I'm going to go ahead and give you 50-50. Even though I got 3 belts, I'm the pay-per-view champion now because I beat you on pay-per-view. But because you gave me 50-50, I'm just going to go ahead and give you 50. It ain't no way in hell, there's no way in hell that would ever happen. None. None. That should be the end of the argument right there. Because there's no way in hell that Terence Crawford's gonna beat Errol Spence Jr. and then turn around and give him a 50-50 split when he now has 3 belts. I'm just saying. So that ends the whole 50-50 talk. There is no 50-50 for this fight. It's not fair. Because unless Terence Crawford is going to do the same thing, hey, the rematch is 50-50 too. Throw all that talk out the window. It don't even matter. I just want to see him fight. I don't care who get. They're not even paying me. I'm not going to get a single cent from Terence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr. when they fight, if they fight, whenever they fight. These guys are never going to send me a check ever in life and say, hey, man, you got me a bigger piece of that purse because you gave an awesome argument on YouTube. on YouTube. So let me send you a percentage of this check that I just got. But that ain't going to happen. So I really don't care personally who gets more money. That don't even cross my mind. I don't care. I want to see them fight. I want to see whose skill sets are better. The 50-50 talk, is irrelevant to me, and it's not even a conversation because, like, I just broke it down for you. It's not fair for Errol Spence to go 50-50 with somebody who's not bringing something 50-50 to the table. If Terence Crawford had 2-3 belts, it's a 50-50 fight, but he doesn't possess that. He only possesses his skill sets and his fan base, so that don't make it 50-50. Let me see what y'all saying. Let me see what y'all saying. Ain't live. No, okay, I got that one. Captain Full G says should be 50-50 and end contract. Winner gets 60-40. That's not fair, man. That's not fair, man. It should be the other way around. It should be the other way around. It should be 60-40 or 55-45 for the first fight, and then the winner should get the bigger majority of the purse. It should never be 50-50. It should never be 50-50. There is no argument for 50-50. It's not fair to either guy. It's not fair to Errol Spence to give up a higher percentage when you have more belts. And it's not fair to Errol Spence to come down on his percentage because he'll have 3 or 4 belts at that time. How does that don't work? Yeah, that don't work to me, man. That does not work to me at all. That in no way I rationale. I can't be rational saying that either one of those guys deserve that it should ever be a 50-50 split for either guy, whether it's Errol Spence coming into the fight as the unified champion, or it's Terence Crawford beating him, becoming the unified champion, and actually having 3 belts at that point, and saying you should come down on your percentage because Spence was just the unified. That don't make sense. That's not good business. In no way would any promoter accept that. In no way would anybody backing a fighter ever say I'm going to take a smaller percentage when I'm clearly the A side. It don't. That's not fair. I mean, because like I just said, man, let's say Crawford beats Spence, and Crawford has 3 belts at this point. If he beats Spence, he'll have 3 belts. Why should Terence Crawford have to give Errol Spence a 50-50 split? It don't make sense. And he done already beat him. It don't make sense. It's not fair. It's just simply not fair. Y'all basing it off of because both of these guys got an O. Forget about the O. You're looking at the wrong thing. Nobody cares. I mean, and the O shouldn't matter. Y'all making it even because they both are undefeated. That don't mean nothing. What do you bring to the table? It should be the only thing that matters. This is business at this point. It's more business than sport at this point when it comes to these two fighters because of the numbers that the fight is going to generate. That's what it's. That's the problem. It has nothing to do with these two fighters. When you're talking the numbers, it has nothing to do with the fight, and the fight has nothing to do with the numbers. These are just they coexist because it's money in sports. That's the only reason they coexist. So there is no negotiation process when it comes to that 50 or above price that Errol Spence is asking for. He's not being unreasonable asking for that type of money. You definitely wouldn't have got Floyd Mayweather in the ring talking about, well, I'm undefeated. I got 1 belt, but Floyd Mayweather got 2. He gonna laugh at you. He's gonna laugh at you and mock you, talk about you on social media. He gonna make you look like a fool trying to do that. So I don't understand. I don't understand that argument at all. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's not fair to Errol Spence, and it wouldn't be fair to Terence Crawford if that role was reversed. So I don't see where y'all coming from with this with the 50-50 talk, man. There is no 50-50. It's not, and it's never going to be a 50-50 between these guys. If Terence Crawford beats him, he's not giving Errol Spence 50% of the purse. It's not gonna. It's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen, man. Be fair. Be fair about it. I want to see the fight too, and I feel like if Errol Spence comes down on his price, the fight might happen a little quicker. But Errol Spence would be a fool to come down on his price because that if he comes down 1, 2, 3, 4%, we talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars. He's never going to see again if he loses that fight. And Terence Crawford is definitely not going to give him the majority percentage if they rematch. Don't make sense, y'all. It don't make sense, man. I can't argue for a 50-50 when I know it's not fair and it's never going to happen. I can't argue for it. It's a pointless argument. Ain't live. Listen, Spence what want that 60-40 because he know he gonna lose straight up. I mean, it doesn't matter whether he loses the fight or not. He's the unified champion. He deserves a majority percentage. That's all that matters. That is all that matters. Now, if Terence Crawford would have went and fought Ugas, he would have had an argument for 50-50. It's that simple. If he would have fought Ugas and beat Ugas instead of Sean Porter, I would give you guys. I would argue y'all point. But he doesn't. The bargaining chips ain't the same. He's not unified. He doesn't bring enough to the table to get 50-50. It's not a fair purse split. No matter how you put it, how you cut it, how you want to spin it, it's just not a fair purse split. Errol Spence deserves the bigger cut. Terence Crawford has to suck it up and just take the smaller percentage. Whether as a fan you like that or not, whether as a fan you agree, that's business, man. At the end of the day, that is business. That's the business of boxing that Sean Porter be talking about. The business part of boxing. It's ugly. That part of boxing is ugly. That's why most fans don't even get into the business of boxing. They barely probably know what their favorite fighter makes a fight. They don't care about that. You really just want to see a good fight. And stuff like this muddies up being a fan because you're focusing on the wrong thing. You're not even talking about both of these fighters' skill sets. We're sitting around arguing about a purse split. We're not arguing whether this guy throws a better hook or this guy's footwork is better in this scenario. We're arguing about a purse split. Nothing to do with the sport of boxing, really. None of these guys are going to be sending any of us $1 when they get paid their 20, 30, $40 million. So at the end of the day, why should I as a fan even care what the F they making? Why should I even care what they're making? I shouldn't even care what they're making. It has nothing to do with me as a fan. Nothing to do with me unless they're going to adopt me. Unless they're going to adopt me and make me one of their kids and they benefit, what they making got to do with? I shouldn't even care. Shouldn't care, and it should be obvious that the unified champion deserves more money than the not unified champion. I mean, what did he win those 2 belts for? Why is he a unified champion? I mean, if it's just that simple, you might as well say, forget the belts. They don't even matter. The belts don't matter. It's just Terence Crawford versus Earl. But then what does the fight mean at that point? If these was 2 regular fighters, nobody be watching them. You're watching them because they're champions. The belts have to mean something. The belts have to mean something. And people have been making this argument that belts don't mean anything. No, the belts do mean something. The belts don't mean nothing to people on YouTube who want to argue a point. And if you bring up belts, then it don't fit their argument. The belts do mean something. Crawford don't got 2 belts. Spence do got 2 belts. Spence is the A side. Accept it. If you can beat them, fight them. Fight them and beat them. And then when you're the A side, you can say, nah, I want $100 million and you get $10. And Spence has to accept that. Because at that point, who else is he going to fight anyway? Who is he going to fight anyway? one of these two guys is going to be caught up in a real bad catch-22 once they need to ride this thing out as long as they possibly can until another 147 fighter makes a name for themselves. Because once they do fight each other, one of these two dudes is going to be assed out. And I don't even really cuss. One of these two dudes is going to be assed out after this stuff is over with. Who's it going to be? I don't know. One of them is going to be in a real sticky predicament. Because who do you fight now? Whether it's Crawford or whether it's Spence. When the next guy's running off with all three belts, what do you do at that point? Pass a rematch. Especially, and at that point, you might as well say one of these guys is going to retire after they fight. Somebody's retiring after this fight happens. When this fight happens, somebody's retiring because whoever wins, they're probably going to go up and wait anyway, and then you're stuck fighting journeyman, waiting for somebody else to make a name so you can make a big pay-per-view check. Not only that, I mean, once the rematch happens, you really have nobody, and there's nothing else. So if Spence wins the first fight and then beats Crawford again in the rematch, Crawford's gonna have to retire. If Crawford beats Spence in the first one, then beats him in the rematch, Spence might as well go ahead and retire. Who else is he gonna fight? He gonna go fight Keith Thurman? You gonna go fight Sean Porter? You gonna fight Danny Garcia? Mikey Garcia? Taco Garcia? You gonna wait for Josh Taylor to come up and wait? Either he's gonna move up and wait and probably go get beat up by a bunch of big dudes because he couldn't even compete at 147, or he's gonna retire. So, I mean, really, for a lot of you Spence or Crawford fans, you should be happy they're kind of dragging this thing out. Because once it's over with, you ain't gonna have nobody to cheer for them. You ain't got nobody to cheer for them anyway. Just be real. That's why I don't care who wins personally. I like Errol Spence. I like Terence Crawford. I lean more toward Errol Spence to win in that fight. But at the end of the day, I have no bargaining. I have no chips. I have no dog in this fight. I don't care. I just want to see a good fight. So at the end, I'm not going to be disappointed. I'm not going to be like, oh man, I lost Manny Pacquiao and now I lost Spence too. If Spence loses, who cares? I just talk about Crawford and to speak about how well he used his skills to beat Errol Spence. I have no dog in this fight. And if you're riding with one guy, at the end of this fight, somebody's gonna be really, really disappointed, man. And it is what it is, man. But this is a fun conversation. But as far as the purse split goes, I'm gonna end it there. It's not fair for Terence Crawford to command a 50-50 purse split from Errol Spence Jr., who comes to the ring with 2 belts and a better resume. And Crawford comes to the ring with 1 belt and a pretty good resume. It's just not fair. It's not fair because, like I said, you can't at that point, if Crawford beats him, turn around and say, well, now you got to give Errol Spence a 50-50 split because he gave you a 50-50 split. In business, that don't even make sense. And you got to think about this. Think about this more from a business standpoint than a boxing fan standpoint. This has nothing to do with being a fan. When it comes to those purse split, it has nothing to do with being a fan, who's the better fighter, who you like more. It's what's fair in the situation. And what's fair is Errol Spence deserves a higher percentage. It just is what it is. Come on, y'all. Be fair, man. Be reasonable. You might not like Spence, but be reasonable to business. be reasonable to business, man. It's just business. It is what it is. Terence Crawford, if he wins, is going to be commanding such high dollar amounts. It's going to be ridiculous. If Spence loses that fight, he's going to probably not even get paid a 40 percentage. He's not even going to probably be up in the 40 percentile of the rematch. He might be down in the 30s. He might only get 30% of that fight. And it would be fair because Terence Crawford would have all 3 belts, and Errol Spence would have nothing at that point. So let's just be fair, man. Keep it real, man. Be fair. Ain't live. Okay, I read that one. Mr. Transfer BRE Seattle, what's up? What's cracking Seattle, man? I'm reaching all the way to the other side of the globe. I ain't never even been on an airplane before, man. I'm reaching all the way to the other side of the globe. All right, y'all. I think my camera battery is about to die, man. I think we're gonna end it there. I'll probably give y'all like 5 more minutes for my camera die here, man. I don't want it to go out and laugh. Y'all ain't got nothing else to say. We'll have to save it for tomorrow, man. We'll do part 2 of this convo or something. I appreciate all of y'all for coming through. Got 11 likes, man. You can't beat that. Can't beat that with a stick. I'm gonna finish up the chat real fast, and I'm gonna get on out of here. Ryan says Bob Arum maybe told Crawford to deal that way. Because let me say this about Bob Arum. Bob Arum's not stupid. Bob Arum's been doing this stuff for years and years and years. As much as I don't like Bob Arum because of what he did to Pacquiao and other fighters, he's not a dumb businessman. This man has millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. He didn't get that money by being stupid in business. He got that money by being a great businessman and making great business deals. And whatever he advised Crawford, he probably advised him right. To if you can't get the highest purse split that you want, don't take the fight because you might lose. You know, that's a reality. He might lose. And then Crawford's whole career is pretty much destroyed at that point. Same thing goes for Errol Spence. If he doesn't get the most he can get out of this fight, what if he loses? And then you just got 50-50 when you could have got, instead of getting 20 million, you could have got 60 million if you were just stuck to your guns. It's business. It's not personal. It is business. It's not personal. It's just business, y'all. It's not personal. The mob tell you all the time. I like Joey. Joey was a good guy. But it's business. It's not personal. He had to go. He had to go. He was doing fugazi stuff. He had to go. He had to get whacked. So it's business, man. It's not personal. Take it for what it is. It's just business. Ain't live. Wait, hold up. Spence resume ain't that far from Bud's. Listen, Danny Garcia, Sean Porter are B fighters. True facts. And Crawford would TKO both of them. Something that Spence couldn't do. I mean, I can't argue with you there. I'm not saying that Spence's resume is amazing or anything. It's not. I've told y'all early in the live that neither one of these guys really impressed me at all. I mean, they're only as big as they are because there's nobody else to put on a pedestal. There is no more talent out there. There's nobody besides these guys to raise to the level of a Pacquiao Floyd at this moment. So these are the two guys that they're throwing out there, throwing at you and telling you, hey, these are your kings of welterweight boxing. But nowadays, a lot of these guys are self-proposed. They're self-implemented kings. They made themselves the king. Ah, man, my battery. Yeah, we out.
Negative, nothing further.
All that seems to be on my mind is All that seems to be on my mind is hustling.
Negative, nothing further.
All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. I just wanna touch a onion. She just want a couple hundred. I got mad and changed the subject. Then I got drunk and said fuck it. This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling bitches. Pull up with that Aquafina. Yellow bone, her name is Tina. Tina like the hit casinos. Tina could snort a whole kilo. Tina Latina bitch, who are you? Met a dark skin chick named Anna. Anna like that marijuana. Anna was from the Bahamas. At least that's what she said. I assume she's honest. I apologize, Your Honor. I just wanted me some money. You can't tell these niggas frontin'. You can't tell these niggas nothing. 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 You can't tell these niggas nothing.
All that seems to be on my mind is hustling. All that seems to be on my mind is hustling.
This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling niggas. This is for my hustling bitches. This is for my hustling bitches. Nigga, don't act so suspicious. Hustle hot as hell, but you swear they snitching. You don't wanna go to prison. You don't wanna go to prison. You don't wanna come up missing.
Damn, baby, how you gonna do me like that?
I just want a couple bitches. Put them in the ring, make a split decision. I'm trying to slow down with the sinning. I pray to God, know you forgive me. Me and God had a discussion. He said, tell him. I said, you can't tell these niggas nothing. You can't tell these niggas nothing. You can't tell these niggas nothing.